Hello friends, Notes on English Literature. 16th and 17th century poetry, The Fairy Queen by Edmund Spenser. Brief questions with answers. Brief questions 33 to 70. Question 33. What kind of shelter did the Red Cross Knight and Lady Una found during the rainy storm? Answer. The Red Cross Knight and the Lady Una discovered a shady grove nearby that could protect them from the tempest. Question 34. How were the Red Cross Knight and Lady Una enchanted by the group? Answer. The group enchanted the weary travelers, the Red Cross Knight and Lady Una, by its beauty. They kept moving forward when the bird song made them forget the tempest outside. Question 35. Which path did the Red Cross Knight and Lady Una choose? Where did they reach? Answer. The Red Cross Knight and the Lady Una chose the labyrinthine path that seemed to them to be well trodden. On proceeding so the chosen way, they reached a hollow cave amidst the thickest woods. Question 36. How did the lady warn the knight at the entrance of the cave? Answer. The lady advised the Red Cross Knight to be well aware and to strike with his sword after being sure of the danger, as dangers may come without show at unknown and wild places. Question 37. What was the knight's answer to Una's warning at the entrance of the cave? Answer. In reply to Lady Una's warning, the Red Cross Knight said that it might be a shame to revoke the forward steps for some unknown danger. In darkness, only virtue could render light, which enabled him to travel safely. Question 38. Which error? Answer. The monster error is one of the evil forces against whom the Red Cross Knight has to fight. Error is represented as a horrible creature with the face of a woman and the hind part a serpent. Question 39. What does the monster error symbolize? Answer. The monster error stands for errors or mistakes committed by human beings in the course of their lives. Allegorically, error stands for the Roman Catholicism or the Pope of Rome. Question 40. How did Lady Una attempt to dissuade the Red Cross from entering the error's den or cave? Answer. Lady Una warned the Red Cross Knight, saying that it was error's den or the cave of monster error, whom both God and man had hated. So it would be better to stop before they were forced to reach it. Question 41. What was the dwarf's opinion regarding the error's cave? Answer. According to dwarf's opinion, the error's cave was no place for living man. Question 42. How did the Red Cross Knight encounter or meet the monster error? Answer. The youthful knight rushed forward with full energy and courage to fight against the monster error. In the faint light radiated from the armor, the ugly monster came into his sight. Question 43. Describe the monster error. Answer. The monster error was an ugly but deadly she-monster. The lower half of her body was a serpent, stretched out at full length. The upper half resembled a woman, most loathsome, filthy, foul, and contemptible. Question 44. How many young ones of hers did the monster error feed daily? Answer. The monster error feed daily 1,000 young ones who were her offspring. Question 45. How did the offspring of the monster error do when the dim light fell on them? Answer. When the offsprings out of the monster error saw the dim light, they crept with fear into the mouth of her mother. Question 46. How did the children offspring of the monster error look? Answer. The children of the monster error looked like little snakes. Each of them was different in shape, but all were foul. Question 47. Why did the monster error retreat, seeing the Red Cross Knight with armor? Answer. The monster error retreated as light reflected from the metal armor of the Red Cross Knight because she hated light as death. Question 48. How did the Red Cross Knight attack the Monster Raider? Answer. The bold knight of the Red Cross jumped upon the Monster Raider fiercely as a ferocious lion leaps upon its prey and with his sharp shoulder prevented it from turning back. Question 49. How did the Monster Raider behave when the knight hit her heart with his sword? Answer. When the Red Cross Knight hit the Monster Raider with his sword, she began to roar angrily and advanced towards him, brandishing her sting angrily. Question 50. Was the Red Cross Knight afraid of the mortal sting of arrow? Answer. No, the Red Cross Knight was not at all afraid of the mortal sting of the Monster Raider. He lifted up his hand and the blow he struck descended from her head down to her shoulder. Question 51. How did the Red Cross Knight fall in the tight grip of Arrow's tail? Answer. Although the Monster Raider was much dazed for some time, by the force of the knight's blow, it collected its strength and suddenly, with great rage, raised itself up high above the ground with its tail coiled. Then it jumped fiercely at the knight's shield and coiled her huge tail around his body so that he painfully tried to move hand or foot. Question 52. What is the meaning of the expression, God help the man so warped in error's endless train? Answer. Finding the Red Cross Knight entwined within the coiled tail of the error, the poet makes this prayer. The knight begins entwined within the coiled tail of the monster error, allegorically refers to his being in the grip of evil. So the poet prays to God to help his creatures when they are in trouble. Question 53. How did Lady Una encourage the Red Cross Knight during his fight with Arrow? Answer. Reminding the Red Cross Knight about his own chivalrous nature, Lady Una asked him to have self-confidence and strangle the monster, or else it would strangle him. Being encouraged, the knight used all his force, freed one of his hands, and gripped its throat with such strength that it was compelled to loosen its hold. Question 54. Why did the Monster Raider vomit and with what effects? Answer. When the Red Cross Knight strangled the throat of the Monster Raider, it vomited out a horribly foul-smelling black poison, full of lumps of flesh, books, papers, frogs, toads without eyes, which crept about in the grass. Question 55. What was the monster's second weapon to get himself released from the knight's tight grip? Answer. The monster Raider's second weapon to get herself released from the knight's tight grip was her stinking vomit. The vomit was so foul-smelling that the knight could not bear it and was forced to loosen its hold and turn back. Question 56. What is the Nile? Why is it famous? Answer. The Nile is a famous river in Egypt. There is a flood in the Nile. The Egyptian valley is covered with fertile slime that helps new vegetations grow. Question 57. How did the monster's Arrow's vomit reach upon the knight? Answer. The stinking items discharged through the Monster Arrow's vomit robbed the knight of his strength that he could combat no longer. At this, the hellish monster let out her ugly children of different shapes. Question 58. How was Arrow killed eventually by the Red Cross Knight? Answer. with a strong determination, the Red Cross Knight struck with his sword at the monster raider with a great force and severed its head from the body. Question 59. What really acted as the guiding force behind her slaying? Answer. Shame upon himself for his own inability acted as the guiding force of the Red Cross Knight behind his killing of the monster raider. Question 60. What was the color of monster eater's blood? Answer. The color of the monster eater's blood was coal black. Question 61. What did the children of Error do after their mother's death? Answer. When the children of Error saw their mother fall groaning to the ground, they tried to enter her mouth, but failing to do so, they began to suck their mother's blood from her wounds. Question 62. How were the children of the monster Error killed? Answer. Seeing their mother dead, the children of the monster Error flocked about their bleeding monster's wound and started sucking her blood until their bloody thirst was fully satisfied. Gradually, their bellies swelled up and burst out. Question 63. How was the Red Cross Knight greeted by Lady Una for killing the monster raider? Answer. Lady Una greeted the Red Cross Knight warmly for his first adventure in killing the deadly monster raider. She said that he was born under a lucky star and was worthy of the armor he was wearing. Question 64. What is the meaning of the word Archimago? Answer. The word Archimago means arch-magician. Question 65. What does Archimago symbolize? Answer. Archimago symbolizes the hypocrisy and flaws of the Roman Catholicism against Anglicanism, or the English Church. Archimago, one instrument of the separation between the Red Cross Knight, the holiness, and Lady Una, truth, may also be identified with the Roman Catholic Pope. Question 66. How does Archimago appear in Canto 1 of the Fairy Queen Book 1? Answer. Outwardly, Archimago appears to be a holy person, but inwardly he is extremely evil. Question 67. How does Archimago appear before the Red Cross Knight and Lady Una? Answer. Archimago appears before the Red Cross Knight and Lady Una as a very old man with bare feet, white and grey beard, wearing a long black garment and a book hanging from his belt. His eyes are bent downwards, and as he walks on the way, he seems to pray and often beats his breast like a man who repents for his sins. Question 68. How did the Red Cross Knight and the Sire Archimago exchange courtesy with each other at their first meeting? And so the old Sire, known as Archimago, saluted the Red Cross Knight courteously, bowing low, and the knight returned his greeting with equal courtesy. Question 69. What was the first request of the knight to the aged sire? And so the Red Cross Knight asked the aged sire if he could inform him about any strange and deadly adventure to be had in the world outside. Question 70. How, in what way did the old sire answer the solicitude of the Red Cross Knight? Answer. The old sire man answered politely that he was a simple old man living in a secluded cell and saying his prayer all day as a penance for his sins. How could he tell of his war and adventure in the world outside? Thank you, friends, for watching my video.